Hello, this is part 3 of my series on Marx's work Wage, Labor, and Capital. In this pretty short chapter, Marx elaborates on what exactly determines wages. So, let's get started. As we mentioned in previous videos, the same laws that regulate the price of commodities in general will regulate wages, a wage being the price of labor power, as we have mentioned in other videos. Hence, wages are generally regulated according to the relation between supply and demand, and according to the competition between the buyers of labor power, the capitalists, and the sellers of labor power, the workers. Adding on to this what we learned in earlier chapters, we see that in modern capitalism, the supply of workers is high, hence large amounts of unemployment virtually everywhere. In reality, this unemployment is manufactured. It isn't real. This unemployment is done by design because it benefits the capitalists. If workers compete with one another for employment, the capitalists can get away with forcing workers to work long hours in horrible conditions for horrendous pay, and no one will bat an eye. Why? Because the workers need to live. The fear of unemployment always looms overhead, forcing the workers to remain docile and not ask for humane working conditions or livable wages. The facade that classical economists peddle, in which a worker can simply go somewhere else if he is unhappy, is exactly that, just a facade. Nevertheless, let's get back to Marx. As we said, wages will rise and fall according to the laws already mentioned. Wages will fluctuate just as the price of any other commodity will fluctuate, either above or below its cost of production. Within the limits of these fluctuations, however, the price of the commodity of the workers, labor power, will be determined by its cost of production. It will be determined by the labor time necessary for the production of labor power. Simply, the wage is determined by the cost of production of labor power. To put it the way Marx did, the price of labor power, that being the wage, will be determined by the cost of production, by the labor time necessary for production of this commodity, labor power. Marx then asks us, what then is the cost of production of labor power? Marx answers this question with the following. The cost of production of labor power is the cost required for the maintenance of the laborer as a laborer, and for his education and training as a laborer. Hence, the less time it takes to train a worker for some kind of work, the less is the cost of production of that worker, and hence the less is the price of his labor power. In other words, the less skilled a worker is, the smaller his wage will be, within the realms of supply and demand, of course. In certain industries where a worker requires a lot of education or expertise, then his wage shall be higher, as his cost of production is higher. In certain industries where just the existence of the worker is necessary, meaning there is no need for any education or technical skill, then his cost of production, his wage, is practically limited only to keeping him alive and in working condition. The price of his work will therefore be determined by the price of the necessary means of subsistence. Marx notes another consideration that comes into account, however. Using another one of his excellent examples, he goes on to tell us that a manufacturer takes into account the wear and tear of the instruments of labor. This manufacturer certainly calculates the cost of this wear and tear and adds it to the cost of the products in such a way that he will be able to fix or refurbish the instruments of production when they break down, eventually. Basically, if a machine has cost the manufacturer, let's say $1,000, and this machine is used in 10 years, then he adds $100 annually to the price of his commodities so that in 10 years he has another $1,000 with which he can replace the worn-out machine with a new one. After explaining this, Marx goes on to say, in the same manner, the cost of production of simple labor power must include the cost of propagation, by means of which the race of workers is enabled to multiply itself, and to replace worn-out workers with new ones. The wear and tear of the worker, therefore, is calculated in the same manner as the wear and tear of the machine. Therefore, the cost of production of simple labor power, as Marx put it, meaning the wage of unskilled workers, is the cost of their existence and propagation. These wages are termed as the minimum of wages by Marx. This minimum wage, just like the determining of the price of a commodity by its cost of production, doesn't hold for only one person, but for the race of workers Marx spoke of earlier. The wages thus determined are called the minimum of wages. This minimum wage, like the determination of the price of commodities in general by cost of production, does not hold good for the single individual, but only for the race. Individual workers, indeed millions of workers, do not receive enough to be able to exist and to propagate themselves, but the wages of the whole working class adjust themselves, within the limits of their fluctuations, to this minimum. This concludes this chapter. In the next chapter, Marx discusses the nature and growth of capital. That's when we get into the real meat of this work. I hope you'll join me for that when I decide to put it up, and that's all. Thanks for watching.